date your presentation? Was it in
April. April, I think.
April, I think
yeah?
this year.
Yeah, April this year. Okay. Well, Angus held a fascinating presentation about the way we dream and what we do when we are dreaming. And I found that presentation fascinating. I really did. And immediately after that, I approached him and I said, Angus, this was great. This begs to be delved into. This begs to be expounded upon. So, to start us off, I think Angus will give us a recap of what he talked about. So, just to put it fresh in our minds, and then we'll proceed from there. Angus, take it away.
Thanks, Mark. The basis of my theory was that since every decision that's made produces both results. So every decision that everybody makes produces a separate timeline, which is ever expanding because of the infinite number of possibilities that come out of every decision, every interaction. And not just conscious, but from nature as well, like what causes a river to go this way rather than that way, sort of thing. So anyways, all of those cause multiple, like infinite number of timelines. And when I think about the dream interpretation books that are out there, to me it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like if you have this conscious mind and the subconscious mind, shouldn't they be like compatible software rather than a having the conscious mind thinking this way and the subconscious muddle things up and send the message back to us. So to me that didn't make sense. So I figured, okay, these dreams must have come from somewhere. So since I looked at the multiple universe theory, multiple timelines, it made sense to me that when you dream, and since you're like when they do the, I can't remember whether it's EKG or ECG or whatever, the thing that measures the brain waves. Anyway, it shows vibrations. So I'm thinking, if your mind is going into other timelines and sort of latching or piggybacking the person, well, I would assume in the majority of cases it would be yourself, since you're the most compatible hardware for for your mind. But if and so in that wave sort of structure, if you're in sync with that other timeline, things would be more substantial. You can actually feel, touch, smell, taste, all that sort of thing. Whereas if you're out of sync with that sine wave or whatever, then things will be a little bit more random, difficult to get a clear picture of. Okay. Pretty much it.
So then, after Angus explained that all to us the last time, I started thinking, and I said, well, you know what, we can delve into this a little bit more, and I thought we would expound on it. So Angus and I sat down on a terrace, had a couple of beers, and that helped.
Nice timeline.
which is very good. Good beer, by the way. Good taste. Yeah, and well, from there we hatched out the following. And so I'm going to have Angus tell us a little bit about the timelines and how they work.
Okay.
And after that, I will. Well, I was going to talk about timelines. You were going to talk about. See, we're getting confused.
Say hi Your son.
Hi, Ryan. So, Angus is going to talk to us about multiple universes, and I'm going to talk to you about timelines. Angus, take it away on multiple universes.
So, as I said before, the like every decision, every point that can produce multiple results actually do produce all of those results, and we are only conscious of one set of what happens. So that would lead to, and this has been proven scientifically with quarks, very, very small particles, that they can see the existence of the identical one in two different places. Well, I'm not sure how they can tell.
Well, they can see the
Because
same.
they don't have
Yeah.
serial numbers on them.
Yeah.
But anyways, they say they can, so that makes sense to me. So, and what these multiple universes produce is an entirely different life for each and every one of us. Okay? There could be timelines where none of you know each other. We don't exist as a group. Or another timeline where, you know, we need a stadium to contain everybody. See? And yeah, exactly. And so that allows us to tap into that wealth of experience that all the other versions of us have experienced, because with all those possibilities actually happening, we have been literally everything you can imagine. Have done literally everything you can imagine.
Yes.
So, you know, and that also explains why when you're piggybacking your other self, that's why everything seems familiar in the dream, even though it's not your house, it's not your car, you don't know who's behind that door, but in the dream you do, because the person you're part of does know that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so we have established that there are multiple universes. Now, in the multiple universes, at least this is what we think, that means there also must be multiple timelines. Multiple timelines in multiple universes means that, let's say, I could now be in one of the multiverses, I could be standing here in Angel Hall, and instead of wearing a beige shirt, I'll be wearing a red shirt, and it'll actually be yesterday. And it might just very well be that we do everything on Saturday instead of on Sunday. Another possibility is that Angus is actually a medieval warrior, and he walks around with a sword and a halyard and a big metal mask on his head in 1461 in a multiple universe where Angus exists then. So what we're dealing with here is not only multiple universes but also multiple timelines. Now when you start dealing with your own dreams, you'll start to find out that every once in a while you get some seriously weird stuff going on. Suddenly you're sitting on a horse. You've never learned how to ride a horse. You're sitting in the old wild, wild west with a lasso in your hand going, wee! And trying to catch Indians or something, whatever. In your dream that makes perfectly good sense to you because that's you on another timeline doing that. So what we want to explain to you this evening is how all that stuff kind of comes together. So we're just kind of introducing a few little concepts to you, timelines being one of them. And Angus is going to explain to us why we are able to receive these timelines, because we are not impeded.
That's right. When we're in a relaxed state, especially when we're asleep. That's when light isn't bothering us, sound isn't bothering us, that sort of thing. That allows, it's like it clears up all the static from a radio station. And everything becomes clear when we have that open communications with no distractions, that sort of thing. Yeah, anything to add?
No, that's pretty much it. So, indeed, we're not impeded by anything that disturbs us. So, the question is now, how do we actually receive this information? Now, before I introduce that, let me tell you about a dream that I had. This is when I started thinking about this theory, and suddenly I had a dream, which was marvelous, because it proved to me, anyway, that Angus and I were on the right track. Now, little history, I used to work for an airline in the Netherlands called KLM, the Dutch airline. And in my dream, I dreamt that I was on KLM flight 642. Unfortunately, having worked there, I know flight numbers by heart. I was on flight 642 from New York to Amsterdam, sitting there as a passenger. In my dream, the airplane took off with me on board. But at the same time, in the same dream, I was actually walking through the airport terminal at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, talking to my former colleagues, going, "Hi, it's me. By the way, do me a favor. Write me an email that you've seen me, just to prove that I've been here. I'm on the plane, I'm also here." Mind scrap. And interestingly enough, in that dream, the people that I saw, that I ran into, looked at me quizzically, as if they recognized me, but they knew it was familiar, but it didn't quite make sense. They thought it was odd and weird and just, that's Marc, but it isn't Marc. Maybe, just maybe, I was interacting with them on their timeline at the same time, making them confused as to, why am I standing here in the airport terminal and why is Marc coming to me telling me something? In the same dream, at the same time, simultaneous to that, I saw myself running along the Bosporus, which is the waterway that separates Asia from Europe, in Turkey, in Istanbul. I was walking along the Bosporus, chilling out under the beautiful Turkish sun, in my shorts. Remember, so I was on an airplane, I was walking in the airport terminal, and I was walking along the Bosporus, all at the same time. Then, in my dream, I received an email from a friend, an old friend of mine, an old college buddy of mine. And in that message he said, "Hey, I saw you walking along the Bosporus." I thought, shiver me timbers, this works. So, here I am, sitting on an airplane, walking through the airport terminal, walking along the Bosporus, and having a friend of mine confirm to me that he saw me walking along the Bosporus. Because he had seen me on YouTube. This is in the dream. So I thought this was a great mind scramble, I thought this was wonderful. So what I did was, a few weeks later, I was having a class with Angela, and I decided to, in that class, to journey to this dream. And what I journeyed to was actually the person who made the image of me walking along the Bosporus. Guess who that was?
You.
Almost.
Angus. Angus, you went there alone?
May very well have been. But there was a gentleman, I was sitting in a helicopter, and that helicopter was red in color, and that on the tail boom it said Marc Air. I own a helicopter company. I owned an airline. But I was sitting behind the camera person. in that helicopter, saying, look, film that guy down there. Who is that?
You just gave a shiver to yourself. Wow.
So that was what I journeyed to afterwards in order to discover. So now we're dreaming. We're all lying in our beds peacefully one night, and you're wondering, well, okay, how do we receive all this information? Remember, it's multiple timelines, multiple universes, multiple situations, multiple existences, and multiple time points. So there must be some kind of a system with which you receive this. Enter the UPC.
Oh God!
This is the universal perception contraption. It sits on your head when you sleep.
Like the Swedish chef comes to mind.
Or it sits on the side of your ear, or on your chest. Now, you have to understand that, of course, this is a rather odd-shaped thing, and of course, the thing doesn't exist in physical reality. It's energy. It's an energy receptor. We are receiving the energy from various timelines. And now, the reason that it is so skewed and shaped this way is because timelines measure time differently than we do. So we're going to give this a label. We're going to call this the universal perception compensator.
Don't touch Lisa's hat!
Well, this was actually made by one of our Angel Hall members.
Oh, artistic.
And so this was made by Laura and the family. So we'll call this the UPC, the Universal Perception Contraption, which we can. Why doesn't it clip on? Click it on. Hey, click it on to the UPC.
There's no clips in that reality.
We'll call this the Universal Perception Contraption, or the Universal Perception Concentrator. And why a concentrator? Because it goes in here, concentrates all the way up to there where you're listening.
Yes.
Yes.
But also in the meantime, as it goes in, all that information wave goes in, it bounces around in here. And that shape is fluid. That shape isn't a constant. Thusly, this rather odd shape.
It's changing.
Because it is constantly morphing and constantly changing that perception. When you receive something from another multiverse or another timeline, we will call that the awareness wave. Just for argument's sake. Call it the awareness wave. The awareness wave passes through this, but goes in, bounces around, goes up that way, gets all muddled. Take it away, Miss.
Okay. So, as you can see, it's not bigger on the inside. It's very, well, relatively thin at this end and larger at this end. Now, that means is when you're having a dream. Has anybody seen the movie Inception?
Yes. Good movie.
Exactly. And it's kind of difficult to describe in a nutshell for those of you that haven't seen it. But essentially, it's like the different layers of a dream, or in this case, the further out you go, the perception of time and the time that you're spending in that dream, which may be only a matter of, an hour in our reality.
Along our timeline. So this would be an hour here in our timeline.
An hour here could be several hours out here.
But within our perception, remember, this is maybe 6 hours, 10 hours, 25 hours, 2 days, whatever. But in our perception, because we're here, receiving, this is our current timeline, we are here, this may only be 10 minutes. But because on other timelines that perception goes like that, this may seem like hours. Up here, it's minutes.
So, So what that does is, if you look at the moments of time as particles,
Yeah.
then at towards this end, those amount of particles are condensed. They spread out a little bit, so there's some room for the occasional stray thought or concept, yeah, to interfere with it, but very little. It's like, you know, everything's the same, only the Golden Gate Bridge is blue, you know, that sort of thing. Whereas everything else is essentially the same. But when you get out here, that same number of particles has expanded and given more room for these different perceptions to come in, and it gets all muddled up because your brain tries to fit it in as best it can.
Yeah, and the further along the timeline you go, the stranger things kind of become. So the further away from your current reality we are, the more susceptible it is to interference.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's also much more in the intermediate layers that comes in that might interfere with you, which we'll demonstrate in a moment.
And these are elements that are individually perfectly normal for those timelines, as we'll demonstrate shortly.
But to your own perception, while you're in your dream, things may be really odd and weird. But your brain tries to make sense of it. And it tries to make sense of it just like, well, in my own experience, I'm partially sighted. Certain parts of my vision I'm missing. And my brain will compensate for what I can't see with something that approximates what there should be there. Well, in the same way, your brain tries to compensate for what it cannot understand. So you may indeed have a dream where you are sitting on a lake in your underwear and you are floating by flapping your arms, because that makes sense to you. Your brain creates that into making sense. It absolutely doesn't make sense in reality, but in that perception, it may make sense. And that's because several things are happening.
That's right, because several elements, like the
mind.
Yeah.
Time, one more thing before we go. Time is a constant. Time, before we get into the time being a constant. Therefore, just one more very important thing.
Things prepared.
This here, again, maybe 10 minutes. That here, maybe 2-3 hours. And at the same time, it all makes sense to us. I'll show you. What we need is 6 volunteers.
String theory.
Sort of string theory. We need 6 volunteers.
Yarn theory.
I need 6 volunteers. 1, 2, 2 more. And 2 more. Now, I need 3 of you on each side. So I need one more. You can stand here, please. And if you could stand here, and I'll just move this chair away. And I'm going to give you each a piece of string.
That ends.
Angus is going to give you each a piece of string.
Distracted by a butt slap.
If I'm going to move a little bit this way.
Butt slap.
Can't shut on film?
No. That's when this is.
Now, Angus, would you be so kind as to get Mom and the dog?
I shall.
Mom of the dog.
Mom and the dog. And we have to introduce them, of course. That's Mom.
Yes.
That's Mom. Here,
You want me to hold that?
Yeah, you okay. Let me introduce you to Mom.
Beautiful lady.
There's Mom. Mom, the way we've always imagined Mom to be. Mom and apple pie. Right, this is Mom. Let's introduce our dog, Spotless.
Spotless.
Dog, Spotless. Spotless and dark. Let's hang Spotless and Mom on the timeline, shall we?
Okay. Yeah.
And here, and we have Mom on the timeline. Now, I'm going to ask you, the front forward row, to hold this up just a bit more. Altitude wise. Now, notice where we are in the perception wave. This is all pretty real. You're dreaming about your mom baking you an apple pie, or, I don't know, yeah, chocolate chip cookies, hanging around in the kitchen.
With the dog at the feet.
Along comes your dog, your faithful 4-footer, Spotless. He comes along, and he hangs around with Mom. And that's quite nice, you're dreaming of that Mom. Remember, this is close to your own reality. This is your own timeline. This is you, yourself. You're here, you're asleep. Now we're going to introduce yourself on a different timeline and a different multiverse. And we're going to say that we have put you in the Middle Ages. You are actually a medieval king. Ta-da! Here's the medieval king.
God!
Okay? Here's the medieval king. Right. And the medieval king, he's really cool. He wants to conquer Egypt. And this is you. You're a medieval king. In some reality, you probably were a medieval king. Somewhere in the 1400s. Now, imagine that. This timeline is slightly lower than this one. Hold it slightly lower, Corey, if you would.
Lower?
Slightly lower, yeah. And
To
keep it
about
taut.
Mid.
Oh, okay.
But
Here.
now, notice how this is real. This is your reality. This is already slightly warped. So you may actually start seeing your mom talking to your dog about a king.
In a pyramid.
In a pyramid. Remember, you're sleeping up here. Your brain's having a good time making sense of all this. Okay, let's introduce Aunt Maud. Or Aunt Hilda.
What do we get, Joe?
Oh, this cake.
Yeah, he's last. He's last.
I want a big head.
Hang on. Now,
Tighten up that string, Corey.
let's, on an alternate timeline,
He's slightly warped.
this is Aunt Hilda.
These are quite the headpiece I was thinking of.
This is Aunt Hilda. Who doesn't know her? Who doesn't love her?
Big beehive.
Great Aunt Hilda. And this is actually Great Aunt Hilda's timeline. This is your aunt, Aunt Hilda. Now Aunt Hilda decides to play some tricks on you because Aunt Hilda's dreaming herself. And she meets you.
She always listens.
So this is what happens. Joe, would you please move this way? Around over here. Now, you see how other people's timelines can get involved. And then suddenly, your reality becomes awfully weird because you see
Why am I dreaming about Aunt Hilda?
why I'm dreaming about Aunt Hilda with Mom
In a pyramid.
in a pyramid with a medieval king
And a dog.
and a dog. And here's Angus's contribution.
Angus's contribution.
Angus, please introduce this fella.
And then,
The wizard.
No. This is a weird ass caterpillar.
a caterpillar smoking a hookah pipe. Which takes elements from Egypt and possibly her garden. Combines them together.
Yeah, so there we have suddenly stuff coming into your brain that is totally weird.
What are you growing in there, Gerd?
Exactly. What are you smoking in the hookah pipe?
And Hilda didn't tell you her secrets.
But this is down here. So this is actually getting very muddled because it's got plenty of space to bounce around in the big open area that is here. And it can get muddled and modified and strange. It's not close to your reality, which is up here. Your own reality is here. So this is... Mom fell. Mom just fell off the pyramid. Mom just fell off the pyramid. She's hurting. She's a mummy.
She's the mummy in the pyramid. It's a pyramid stage.
She's not a mummy. So that's how, when you dream, according to our theory, you get some crazy stuff.
Well, it explains my dreams now, thank you.
So, do you have any questions? You don't induce them because you are actually listening. You don't induce them because that energy is out there already. Everybody, I got a very good question here for you. I got a good question. How do you induce this? You don't.
Induce it?
You don't induce anything because simply they put all those dreams, all those timelines, that's energy. And because you have your UPC, your universal listening device, you hear it and it goes straight to your head. It's not induced to you, it just exists already. It is already there. And that's why you're able to pick it up.
That was wonderful, guys, thank you.
Any further questions? Yes.
Is there a correlation between the quantum physics of it?
Beg your pardon, one more time?
Is there a correlation between the quantum physics of it and past life regression, where they're intermixed? They're intermeshed?
It's one for you.
I got nothing.
Can you repeat the question? Anything's possible.
Yes, because with that cone, it can also go forward and backwards as well. So, you know, it's,
Where's the UPC?
It totally.
oh, I put it over the corner.
Well, imagine the UPC. Travel. Imagine the UPC. The UPC is also fluid. It can catch up with your future, with your past, multiple universes. It can expand at the bottom, contract. It picks up what it picks up.
Yeah.
So past life regression, yes, that's possible. Of course, why not? If it's on your own timeline. Past life regression could be a possibility. Any other questions? Thanks.